Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 433. This is your guide to the geek side, and I am one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra, living in America. Thank you, James Brown. Joined by Charlie Carden.
What's up? What's going on? Sunday. It's not 4th of July weekend because it's 4th of July is on a Tuesday. Weird. I was just thinking, we were talking last night. I said I should look at the calendar for next year. I don't know when the next year we get a leap year so that we can kind of move 4th of July a little closer to not being in the middle of the week because it just screws things up. Boo.
It happens every 7 years. And next year will be on a Wednesday. So even worse. No man's land.
That's what I was talking to. Oh, that's what I was talking about, the leap year. I don't know when the next leap year is. I thought leap years were every 4 years.
They are every 4 years.
Won't that jump it forward a day? Or I don't know. Have to look at the calendar. I know.
Who am I, the calendar man, Charlie?
Calendar man. Didn't Batman run him over with the Batmobile? Run over his calendars?
Each did it on a leap year and it didn't exist here, so it didn't actually happen.
Oh, unbelievable. Yes. But you know what happens every single solitary week on this very network is us giving love to our fantastic patrons, the folks that make it possible for us to make fun additional content. Todd, you've got something in the chamber that's coming out soon. I don't want to spoil it for you. I have been making a show called The Facts of Geek Life, where I'm joined by a guest or guests talk about a season of a classic television series. My wife and I do a great show once a quarter about bad movies. Todd joined us recently to talk about Wing Commander. And then Todd and I, of course, do a show called The Spinner Rack, which is about comic books. And we have just two things. We have just recently branched out to place some of that legacy content out on our network feed. If you don't subscribe to our Secret Friends Unite network feed, I encourage you to do so because you will get a little taste of things that we have released closer to the beginning of 2023 when we launched our Patreon. And also, you can go to secretfriendsunite.com/Patreon. And, well, I just got that wrong. Patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Try it both ways. See what happens. Oh my God. It might send you into some kind of quasi alternate dimension where we own Patreon.
Just don't go to patreon.com.
Don't go to patreon.com.
That is something else.
Be bad. Yeah. But once you go to patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, you can do a free 1-week trial of any of our tiers, which gives you access to our great content that I was talking about. But more important than that is giving love and respect to the people that do make it happen. I'm, of course, talking about Jamie Prinky on our Best Buds level, and over on the BFFs level, the fantastic Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry, my dear friend and collaborator, Missy Merchant, and Andy Milliken. We are grateful to all of you for making it possible. We're having a good time. It's good stuff. So, what is arguably a good time is this cover. And, I must have missed out on, this is from 1989, but I missed out on Acts of Idiocy. Was that a crossover that just took its inspiration from Acts of Vengeance? I don't remember.
Charlie, it was not. It was actually just a one-off. So Acts of Vengeance was a ongoing crossover event. It was essentially the villains of certain heroes were swapped. It was a weird thing, but it wasn't its own event in regards to it wasn't actually there was an Acts of Vengeance actual book, which is cool. It's what they did back in the days. So this one was just essentially making fun of that because in Silver Surfer number 33, they brought in a character which I find funny, and that is Impossible Man. So Impossible Man was in this book
back in the day.
Correct. So, of course, he's silly. He's essentially like Mr. Mitzelplitzik from DC.
That's how comic book guy from Simpsons says it. Mr.
Mitzelplitzik. Yes. Many, many different ways to pronounce that man's name. But he is that goofy character that can do things. He debuted in Fantastic Four number 11.
There we go.
November 1962. He's an alien race. He is also known as Impy, Herald of Destruction, and the Improbable Guy. So he showed up. He showed up in this comic with Silver Surfer, so of course they decided to take notes and just make it Acts of Idiocy because always hijinks ensue with when Impossible Man showed up, and he's a character that it's like the what is it, the Four Bush Man, and there's other characters in
anything by Fred Hembrick. with the little
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of these characters that are just like from the periphery, and most people have no clue that happened. Yeah. Well, at least Spider-Ham in his own book. These characters here's a character, and they just they're kind of there. They never had their own book. They just have adventures, and it's wackiness. And this is Impossible Man's time to shine, because I don't know when the last time we've seen him.
He did. I remember him from the Marvel, the official handbook guide to the Marvel universe, that he also had a wife who was the Impossible Woman or Impossible Gal or something, and they were identical. So they're from a race where apparently there was only one shade, kind of like the Skrulls. Everybody looks alike, whatever, and also green, but no relation.
You're offending them, Charlie. They would say they could tell themselves apart, and they can't tell humans apart.
I guess. Yes. I know. You know what? If everybody's not wearing name tags, we're in big trouble. Anyway,
and their alien race is the Pop-Uppians,
right? And they're from Pop-Up is the name of the planet. I remember that from the guide. So I have the guide. I must still have them upstairs. I have some books over here on my shelf. I should move more over here as more of a set piece, because it's all my background. But anyway, yes, hopefully we didn't mention. Do follow us over on YouTube so that you can see all the fascinating things. I do try to move my desk around so you can get the depth of all the excitement.
And I always show the cover when we talk about it on the YouTube feed as well, so you can watch along and enjoy.
Better believe it. One thing that is better heard but potentially not seen, sorry to say, is probably our senior news correspondent at 123 years young. I'm talking about Madam Webb, down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine. She's always got the goods, the hot information, the latest stuff in her news and reviews. Let's go.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Happy anniversary, Madam Webb. I know at times you've decided to celebrate with our country in many dangerous ways. You decided to make your own fireworks in your own back cauldron. Let's just say you're lucky that you have all your limbs and appendages, but many of your pets no longer exist.
Oh, boy. It was the former kitty cat. But what do we got coming up? We have a celebrity that you decided to make up a name for.
Yes. So big news got announced that James Gunn has selected his leads for the Superman Legacy film, which we find David Cornsweet as Clark Kent, aka Superman, and Rachel Cornsweet. Yes, Cornsweet. And Rachel Brosnahan, who is in the magical Mrs. Maisel.
She is not magical or Maisel. It's called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's a show that April I like very much.
She's magical. Yes. So she is going to be Lois Lane. So she's going to be in Lois Lane. And obviously Rachel she's got a name. People know her, but David is less known, but he is American. So we've got the role back. We took it back from the Brits.
Yes.
And he's a Philly guy. So he can talk about cheesesteaks and be annoying.
And Hall and Oates and Boys to Men and Rocky. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. So this is going to be the first live action film in the new DC universe, coming out in 2025. James Gunn has written the script.
It's written. That's how they could even do the sides in an interview, is because the stuff was already written.
Yeah. Yes. And he is directing it as well. It is coming out July 11th, 2025. Obviously, the Directors Guild, they just signed their deal, so they're good. The directors are good. And then the actors, which apparently they got an extension on their deal, because their deal actually ends, and they will decide if they're going to strike or not, July 12th. And the obviously the writers, it's been almost 2 months now. So we're at this point, these dates could change, because if you don't have actors, you do not have a movie. So that's kind of where we're at.
You can't be a script. They're not going to bring in just guys like you and me, say, here you go. Okay.
Yep. So a little bit about these actors. So Cornsweet, you may not know about him, but he first broke out in Ryan Murphy's series The Politician. Then he was in a Netflix series called Hollywood. He was also in We Own the City.
Yeah, we watched that one. Okay, now I know who he is. Yeah, that was a Ryan Murphy, and it was, as you had mentioned, it was definitely out there.
Yep. He was in the HBO series We Own the City, and a lot of people know him because he was in Pearl, that movie Pearl. He was the projectionist who Pearl killed.
Oh, I actually watched that movie because it's on Paramount Plus, and because I enjoyed the movie that it was X, which was very full of nudity, which everybody enjoys at a certain level, and Pearl was not, nor was it entertaining. But
really? A lot of people like Pearl more than X, from what I've heard. I'd like to see both.
Well, they are both on Paramount Plus, so knock yourself out.
Perfect.
While Paramount Plus still has content.
Exactly. So there you go. So that's Corn Sweat. So this is kind of his big break. A literal unknown, because people would say maybe they recognize his face, but he looks like Superman.
That's
kind of like that.
I only knew it by the fact that that you mentioned that he was in two things I've seen, but otherwise it's not a household name. Where Rachel Brosnahan, from Maisel, from the fact that she was in House of Cards, got buried in the desert by Michael Kelly, because he was the fixer on that show, and she was a dirty little secret of I think Corey, what's his face, the guy who was in Ant-Man, the guy who's Yellow Jacket,
or Corey Stoll.
Corey Stoll, yeah, she was a prostitute who was his dirty little secret, so she had to get buried in the desert. That was how her character came to an end on that show. Sorry about the spoilers from a show from 10 years ago.
Yes, absolutely, because I was spoiled when that show first came out. So never mind. Moving on. So essentially, at this point, they're still casting all of the other actors, obviously Lex Luthor and some other things. So I hope it's coming together. Everybody seems excited for the cast.
Yeah, totally.
Very, very cool.
I'm excited to see things actually happening, because again, we don't really know much. Now Todd, you had mentioned we are now 2 months into this strike, and the last strike lasted 3, so let's keep it below the average, let's hope.
Yeah, and one of the biggest challenges too, it's not just that you have the script, there are writers on set to actually make rewrites as things are going on.
Yes, exactly.
They are not allowed to do that, and that's one of the big things. Like Deadpool 3 is filming right now, and one of the things that Deadpool likes to do, and Ryan Reynolds likes to do, he likes to improv.
Right.
You cannot do that. You actually have to have that scripted and written. So there's going to be some movies that are made probably around this time that might get some scrutiny to say, no, you actually wrote things and you broke the rules or violated. So that could be a challenge for many people.
Here's a question. When you say the definition of improv, it's like you and I, we don't go off of a script here. We're just, though we do have a guidebook, we're kind of riffing and stuff. Are you trying to tell me that in your knowledge, something that's improv, if somebody's riffing, that's actually not? It's actually written. It's not actually just me saying, "Hey, Dad,
correct." It has to be I believe it has to be approved as part of the. It has to be part because it's part of like the contract with. That's part of the things that get held because. Well, I improv that, so you don't get any credit.
Yeah,
I only used 25% of your script, so we're only paying you. There's a lot of things. That's why contracts and union rights. Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that things like this writer strike are based around. That was probably something that was negotiated days past. So, as we always say, plug. We will always stand with the writers. We're glad that these folks are fighting for what they need to make a living, and we hope that they get what they need soon, so that we can all get back to enjoying content. So, plug.
And I think the only way that's going to happen anytime soon is if the actors truly go on strike.
Right.
Because if the actors don't go on strike,
it's a two-front war. Yeah.
I think it becomes then you get acting guild writers, which
is
at that point it's like then it's a slippery slope and it's bad juju.
It all falls apart.
It's like the NFL when they put in the scabs when they strike. I mean, it's brutal. So
all right.
One thing we have heard, and because of this movie coming out, we are hearing now that, which is kind of like a dumb moment, I guess. I'm kind of glad it's a dumb moment, but the fact that Superman Legacy will exist in a world with heroes. I think that makes sense. I don't want I want some existing heroes in a world.
Right.
I want Superman to have been existed, and that's what it's supposed to be. Superman's supposed to have existed in this world for quite some time. He's not a rookie. It's not his story growing up. It's not his origin.
Right.
So this makes a lot of sense that you would have heroes. And one of that group,
kind of like, like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, when he was brought into the MCU, it was an established world. We didn't have to go back to pot because everybody, from birth knows Spider-Man's origin story, blah, blah, blah. Uncle Ben, Spider-Bite, that kind of thing. So you don't have to go there. That's basically
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the groups that's going to be introduced apparently in this movie, because they'll introduce people and things and concepts and things like that, is a group called the Authority. The Authority is
Respect.
a Wildstorm
Matter.
creation. So Wildstorm was an image imprint that Jim Lee started when he was part of that group. DC bought Wildstorm, and that's now why Jim Lee is part of DC, and his characters are now part of DC owned there. And the Authority is a really cool group. Basically, they are a group that means to do the right thing, but they often have to do the wrong thing to get there. So not exactly anti-heroes, but
they're kind of Spike Lee, do the right thing.
Kind of, yeah. And they have versions of characters which are similar to like when you saw like the Squadron Supreme, where there's a guy that's like Batman and Apollo. So Midnighter and Apollo are Batman and Superman essentially. And so but it's kind of neat that they're bringing these characters in, because fresh faces are always good. I mean, and you're getting new storylines. So this is kind of cool. So that's what we're kind of seeing, is we're going to see new characters, new ideas as part of this DCU imprint. And the good news is,
I was going to say, you mentioned this. It's a Jim Lee creation, right? Did you say the Authority?
Correct.
He is very randomly. I just caught this somewhere on social media at a comic book store in Traverse City, Michigan this week, and it's like,
he must know somebody.
I've spent time in Traverse City, and there's one comic book shop. It's basically a brick and mortar brick building, and that's just really bizarre. It's not even any shows going on up there right now, so I don't know. I'd be curious.
He must know somebody. He's on vacation in the area. Maybe has a home there. Yeah, and he's there. But that's a big catch, because Jim Lee is essentially, he is the number one guy at DC. For a lot of their properties. He's kind of like the Joe Quesada, his role at that point when he was helping out all of the properties, basically being the expert on all things Marvel, who they would go, can we do this with this character? And Jim Lee's that way. So and he's such a great guy, great artist, and I'm glad he's found success the way he has. And this works out. So very, very good that we're going to be getting this movie. We're getting a gap, which is nice, because after 2023, we are not seeing another DC film until, like I said, mid-July. So we're getting a break. And it will have been DC, how many years since we saw Superman?
DC needs to be on a break. The Justice League was in 17, wasn't it 2017? Yeah. Nice.
So that's almost 8 years. So that's a good break.
That is a good break. That's a Batman-sized break. So moving right along, we have a epic trailer for Dune Part 2. Dune came out in 2021. The remake with,
I thought it was 2019.
Chalamet, and the director was Denis Villeneuve. I'm trying to remember when we talked about it.
No, you're right. It came out in 2021. So
because I remember you and myself and Kate talked about post-COVID. But adaptation. This is apparently going beyond what David Lynch was able to accomplish in his cult 1984 adaptation with Kyle MacLachlan and Sting and Patrick Stewart. I was and a soundtrack by Toto, which I love Toto, but boy, I'll tell you, I mean, Flash Gordon had Queen, which I definitely think is a more epic matchup.
There's a lot of movies where the soundtrack is far better than the movie itself.
Yeah, I mean, I was never much like I was also never a Blade Runner guy. I was never really a Dune guy. I was aware of it. I think those are two things that my brother liked a lot more than I did.
It's a deep sci-fi cut. Yeah. I mean, and those books are huge. Yeah, too,
exactly. So it's a little intimidating, but we're getting the fantastic Timothy Chalamet coming back with Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, who we'll see in Mission Impossible in a couple of weeks here. This is kind of a who's who of MCU stuff. Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista. We don't have Oscar Isaac back because his character was killed off. Javier Bardem, but we're also getting, again, MCU, Florence Pugh, Christopher Walken, Austin Butler, and more. So, big names, but huge sweeping scope of, we're leading the revolution and 1,000 soldiers and stuff blowing up. And a lot of it that was a lot less sci-fi-ish, because you don't see the big sandworm and stuff. You just see a guy, in a windstorm jumping off a mountain, stuff blowing up, snipers. This I think this looks amazing. Is it going to be like 14 hours long like the first movie was? That's my guess.
Good question. I don't know. And they decided to make this 2 parts back in the day, which I think was a smart move. We've always struggled with like a part 1, part 2. Does it work? Does it not work? I think the overall consensus of this movie is most people really loved it. It took them. It's kind of like where Avatar, where that movie brings in people that are not necessarily always involved because of the visuals and things like this. I think this movie approached that, and this is a movie I said I'm seeing this in the theater because I need that landscape and I need the screen. So I'm going to see it obviously in the theater, and I am very excited for this trailer. It looks really cool.
No, I agree, and I'll go back and give that first movie a hack. It is still available on Max. One would assume it might still be there come November, but you never know. But I would assume prior to go seeing this comes out on November 3rd. And so I assume probably in late October we'll
perfect time for it too.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, nothing's opening in November. It's early. You're going to have the box office to yourself, and it's a big movie.
Yeah, so it could end up being a big hit. So I'm excited about this. And again, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to go back and read a book because I don't do that. Neither do you. I do a lot of book reading, so I'm perfectly fine with the movie. That sounds pretty exciting to me. So.
Absolutely, and that's the great thing. It's the book is how old, and if I haven't read it in the last 50 years, I'm probably not going to. And there was a great sci-fi miniseries on Doom called Children of Doom, which I enjoyed quite a bit in the early 2000s. So that's I don't even know if that's available. It might be on Peacock. Who knows?
Right. The Peacock. I like it.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So speaking of Florence Pugh, her character of Yelena Belova is preparing for her own spotlight comic over in Marvel. The White Widow comic will be dropping here within, I don't think we have a drop date, but dropped on Friday. She's
November 1st.
November 1st. She's getting her own comic from Sarah Gailey, who is a novelist, and artist Alejandro Miracolo, Red Sonja and Star Wars Yoda. Not terribly familiar with either one of their works. Todd, the character of the White Widow goes back to early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken.
She debuted, and I was looking that up. She debuted in a one-off comic, early 2000s.
Yeah,
that's right.
Which was that was not my sweet spot for reading because I kind of took a big break. I read some of the Ultimates comics back in those days, but as far as transitioning back into the mainline stuff, it was later in the late aughts that I got back into reading. So I kind of missed this character hidden scene, kind of like I missed Sentry, which a lot of people talk about Sentry, the Avengers character, and I'm just kind of like. I know what you told me about it.
Well, yeah, Sentry is a great character because essentially it was this is a character that we just dug up from the archives. He existed. No, he didn't. They flim-flamed us, Charlie. Yeah. They created this modern character and said he was from the past, and everyone just forgot about him.
And again, as I mentioned last time you brought that up, they did the same thing in an Avengers crossover with a character called Voyager about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yes, and now we've got Spider-Boy, the same thing. It's like, what?
Yeah, stop trying to draw it backwards. But anyway, the cover of this, you see the White Widow, who looks exactly like Florence Pugh's adaptation of the character, simply in a white body stocking with the familiar Widow Sting wristbands, and she is blasting through a cavalcade of AIM soldiers with the classic beehive helmets. So yes, for the fans of Black Widow and a little bit more of the surface level spy stuff, this could be a big grab. I don't know, Todd, is this something that pulls on your heartstrings? Are you interested?
Well, I like that this is a 4-part miniseries.
Yes,
I like that because then it's not like because I love it when they have a story to tell and they make it condensed and it works. Half the time it's well worth because it's a trade. It's a book you can recommend to somebody versus like well they continue it out. So I think this could be a lot of fun. She's a character I've really enjoyed quite a bit. We're gonna see her again in Thunderbolt. She may come back again before then, but who knows?
There's a whole lot of who knows. And speaking of a whole lot of who knows, let's talk about San Diego Comic-Con and who may or may not be there. The first of which of the not be there is going to be Disney and the representatives in Marvel Cinematic Universe. They have withdrawn from Hall H. So yeah, writer strike, obviously a factor. They don't have things to actually talk about because everything has kind of become pretty hypothetical, because again, all of their upcoming projects are Untitled This. We hope this is coming out. There's an X-Men thing, maybe Daredevil's happening.
One of our main characters might be going to jail.
Yeah, exactly. So that might throw absolutely everything in the toilet. Looks like HBO is not going to be there because they don't know what they've got going on. House of the Dragon season 2, Last of Us season 2, both of those shows are in the mix. But Max, or the former HBO Max, it says out HBO in Max. What? Did I miss something?
Well, because this is the weird part, Charlie. This is they say
company versus
Max is the title.
Yeah.
Because essentially, like Max is a subset of HBO is a subset of Max.
Oh, okay.
So it's like Max is the service, and it's like Showtime on Paramount Plus. Showtime is a
got
part
it.
of that,
Because there are still people.
Because there's a lot of shitty stuff on Max, and they don't want it to be like, oh, HBO made House Hunting Seattle. What?
Yeah, well, they've still got people out there who, believe it or not, have actual cable, and they watch HBO. They don't have Max. So whatever.
Well, no, you cannot get HBO anymore. You can only get Max.
I still don't get it. But anyway, it looks like also Sony is not going to be around. They have Ghostbusters Afterlife, Madam Web, and Kraven the Hunter, Gran Turismo on their docket. No Universal Pictures, no Netflix. Warner Brothers will be there. Boy, there's, is it kind of like a stance of bravery? Like, we're gonna still be, we're sticking in there. We're still gonna be there.
Most of his stuff, it's so far away.
Yeah.
So they can typically, James Gunn can just show up and say, there's some things. He and Safran could show up and pitch it, and he could give more ideas about kind of the concepts and things like that. But I honestly don't want to know everything.
Yeah.
I got to the point of like, because if it doesn't happen, I'm screwed. Or if it's like, oh, I'm hearing negative things about this project. I just want to know about things.
Invest the emotional energy. No, I understand. Looks like Paramount Pictures is going to be there, but there's no Star Trek talk going on. They're taking a serious black eye right now over this deal with Star Trek Prodigy. So it looks like NBC/Peacock, undecided, Amazon in-ish. So they're going to sort of be there, I guess it means. They would potentially be talking about Wheel of Time and the second season of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. In addition to God of War, Todd, that's you, Fallout. So a lot of video game stuff. That's kind of their space.
Well, no, this is going to be adaptations.
Oh, well, of course. No, I understand that. But that's several in a row. Apple TV Plus, not decided if they're going to make it. If they did, they would potentially be talking about the Beanie Bubble, season 2 of Severance, and Manhunt. Oh boy, Funko is going to be there. Todd, they're my favorite. That's not a TV network, but the product.
Well, they're doing that thing now, Funko yourself too, where it's like you can get a Funko that looks like you,
like Hasbro,
which isn't very hard because it's like big eyes and a hairdo.
It's Hasbro selfie. Yeah, Todd, I could make one of. Let me grab one of the Funkos off the upstairs. So I could say, look, the Spider-Man is really me. Can't you tell?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's about it. So, and again, especially in a post-COVID world, much of San Diego Comic-Con material finds its way online. I don't know if they're going to stream or hold things back, but what do they really have to hold back? There's not like, oh God, remember it was last year or the year before that. It's like, here's a trailer for Mandalorian season 3, and they sat on it, or maybe it was a celebration. They really sat on it, and people really didn't know what was in there, and that's all well and good. Should be that way.
And I've always said this: these shows are so popular that they sell out before most people could even think to buy the tickets. So it's not like you're saying, well, if we show it there, people won't show up. No, people will show up to these things because it's an event. Yeah. It's so much excitement to meet people. I did have to laugh though, because like with some of these, it's like, well, NBC won't show up if the actors strike. Makes sense. You can't bang anybody out. The other part is Amazon stuff. We don't know if it's going to have their panels or they'll just have displays on like signs. They'll be there by having signs.
What a shit
posters!
What a shit show!
T-shirts.
Oh boy, yeah, it could be like, and I mean, you could accomplish all of that at basically a flea market somewhere. So what a mess! What a mess! There's obviously there's people who are very diehards for this kind of stuff, and I get that. That's okay.
But this is like still the biggest convention for all pop culture anywhere else. It puts everyone to shame because you're going to get Marvel Comics showing up. Yeah. You're going to get all the publishers. You're going to get stars still showing up, hawking their wares. So regardless of what you think, like Hollywood's not showing, this was a big deal before Hollywood showed up. Well, Hollywood showing up really was as of 2008. 5
or 8, yeah. And
8 was like the big year because when Marvel got big, that was until 2008. So you didn't
Iron
see
Man.
Hollywood.
Yeah, and San Diego Comic-Con having been around since 1972, so over 50 years. So, but back then it was probably at the San Diego Ramada or Holiday Inn, and it was a bunch of nerds like us digging through dusty comic boxes. It was real, it was life, it was raw. And now it's this, but now it's going back in the direction. So interesting. Yeah. All right, well, Todd, take us home. What is our last story about?
So
Mr.
last
Spawn?
Story is interesting because Spawn is kind of like the indie darling of comics has become an icon for starting over. I mean, when Todd McFarlane and all those famous artists from Marvel left to form Image, it was unprecedented. You had artists forming this company. It was all about creator rights. And Spawn was one of the first characters. I think there's only one other character that's still ongoing along with that, and I think that's Savage Dragon, and that could be wrong too. But he's the one that survived, and he's been around for 30 plus years. And we've got a Spawn movie, and we also got an HBO animated series, which actually was kind of cool. But those were all we're talking early 2000s. Like Spawn, the movie was mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then the animated series was maybe late 90s or late 2000s. So we haven't seen Spawn in a while, but he's popped up in video games.
Michael Jai White.
He's got multiple comics. He's over 300 issues of Spawn now. And Todd McFarlane is trying to will this new film into existence. I don't know if Spawn has a big fan base anymore, or if it's just a diehard. I don't know.
Right.
It sells well, but that's comics still. No one has come up to me randomly and said, "Hey, Todd, what's going on with Spawn?" Nobody does that. What's the word on the street?
Really? What's the word on the street? Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. But the good news is that at least Todd McFarlane is now partnering with Blumhouse. So Blumhouse, if you know, they are the hotness when it comes to indie horror films and such. So this could go well that they're working on together, and they're partnering to bring basically Spawn back to the screen. And he's been working on it since 2016, apparently, to bring this movie out. So almost 10 years. And the big part is he wants to direct this. And I don't know if that has ever worked out, having the creator of something also be the director of a film. I mean, he doesn't even draw the comic book anymore. He doesn't even write it, I don't think. So he's kind of stepped away creatively.
He's more going to be Mr. Big Picture Vision. When I created it, I was thinking of XYZ, that kind of thing. Yeah. Is there precedent? And do we not know if there's precedent because it was
Frank Miller
such a dismal film?
Frank Miller directed The Spirit, if you remember, because Frank Miller was involved in Sin City and 300, because those are both his properties, from a producer, make sure it's accurate, things like that. And then I believe he actually directed a segment in Sin City 2, I think. But then he directed the Spirit, which is not one of his properties, but Will Eisner is one of his greatest creations.
Yeah.
That movie, I've never seen it, but apparently it's horrible. It's got Samuel L. Jackson as the bad guy. It's got some other unknowns. I probably should watch that movie just because I'm curious.
Who was the star if Sam Jackson was the villain?
Good question. Keep riffing, Charlie, about Spawn, and I'll look that up.
I just thought, Spawn, 1997, Michael Jai White. It was the beginning of the career of who played the clown? John Leguizamo.
John Leguizamo, yep.
Who else was even in that movie? I was thinking of Ice-T was in it.
That's about it.
Ice-T was in it, but that was Tank Girl.
Oh, Martin Sheen. Wasn't Martin Sheen the bad guy?
Oh God, one of those classics, where you have a
he was a politician.
You have a movie and he's a rap guy, and it's I remember the Chris Rock routine with Pootie Tang. He says in my movie it's Truckee and Martin Sheen.
yes. Okay, I found it, Charlie. So here's the cast of 2008's Spirit.
Okay.
Gabriel Macht was the lead character, which he was in Suits. He went on to his most famous role was in Suits,
which I didn't watch.
Yes. Ava Mendes was in it. Sarah Paulson's in it.
Ooh.
Dan Lauria is in it. He was Kevin's dad in Wonder Years.
Yep.
Paz Vega, Scarlett Johansson, and Samuel L. Jackson was the bad guy.
Just watched a Scarlett Johansson movie today, and we rewatched it because we were talking about clones or whatever. We watched the Island again from 2005.
Maybe this might have to be your bad trip to the movie. It might be The Spirit, Charlie.
Oh my gosh, that's good. Well, we are thinking about doing an extended series of the Fast and Furious movies because.
Oh please!
Oh my God!
Put those to bed.
Yeah, we are. Yes, we will. We will put them to bed with our power. But all right. So again, with anything that may happen, it's definitely. It may happen with no writers, potentially with no actors. So literally everything we've talked about here, take it with a grain of salt, except for the White Widow comic thing. That's definitely happening.
Yeah, comics are still happening. Yeah, They're not in the Screen Actors Guild. So the writers. Yeah.
Dune is happening because it's done. So, but yeah, anything that's being talked about being made, I would say don't hold your
expect
breath.
Delays.
Yeah, expect delays and dismays.
Yes.
Well, anyway, with that is the end of the news. Todd, time to get out that Fuber app, that feeble Uber app. The Geek Easy awaits down in Nastyville, Scugtown, where we're talking about what we're enjoying. Let's do it.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, drinks are poured, and we are getting our nerd on. So we're in the middle of a lot of TV shows. A lot of things are coming out. I was going to talk about The Witcher this week, but I want to watch a couple more episodes before I talk about that. So, Charlie.
Witcher. Yeah,
Yes.
So the only show I really consumed this week was Secret Invasion. Episode 2, we talked about episode 1 last week. Neither one of us was particularly blown away by that first episode. We thought it's some setup and it seems kind of dour, and it's going to be this very street level thing, and there's kind of an alien part of it and blah blah blah, but it's just not, and then it ended with a big bang. If full spoiler, sorry, because for both 1 and 2, we lost Maria Hill at the end of episode 1. So we kick off episode 2, and we're learning more about the intrigue of the character that it was very hinted at as Sam's son, Ben, who is played by Benadir. What is the actor's name?
Dravik, or the actor?
Yeah, the actor.
The character?
Yeah.
Or the actor?
It's Ben Kingsley Adair or something like that. It's his name. It's like
Kingsley's son.
It's Ben Kingsley's son, even though he's black. But yeah,
Could be. I mean, Ben Kingsley could have married a woman of color, and
that's right.
He took her last name. So there you go.
Ooh, well, look at that, a little research project for you. It wouldn't take 2 strokes of Google to figure it out. But yeah, we learn a little bit more in this episode about what's developing. We get a return of Don Cheadle as Rhodey, who is now clearly a very high. He's still referred to as Colonel Rhodes, so you don't necessarily know if I don't think he's perhaps not in the military anymore, but he is part of the State Department and at the behest of the U.S. president, played by Dylan McDermott. Not Dylan McDermott.
He's an
Mulroney. Yes, he's an envoy. Dermot Mulroney. That's who the president is now. Although I think by the time we get to Captain America: World Order, isn't Harrison Ford supposed to be the president as William Thunderbolt?
No, he's going to be Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah, but I think he's supposed to be the president.
Maybe Mulroney is killed. Yeah. I don't know. I've not heard anything about Ross being president.
There's going to be another election. But anyway, so yeah, he tries to, Don Cheadle as Rhodey trying to talk some sense into Fury. Not happening. A couple of twists and turns, some more, fights, some more Sam Jackson painfully running around, which I know is Todd's favorite thing about this show. Ow, my hip! And then at the conclusion of the episode, Sam Jackson wanders into a residence. There's a woman cooking in the kitchen. She says, "Didn't you forget something?" He turns around and picks up a wedding ring, puts it on, and then they make out because this is his scrully wife. Lot going on. What do you think?
Yes, lots of good moments in this. I think this is much better. They should have put 2 episodes out because it would have given us a better picture about the whole thing. Why the Avengers aren't included.
Right.
A lot of more of the impact, kind of like some good moments between Nick Fury and Talos, essentially saying, well, what happened and why didn't. Right. So there's a lot of tension that it would have been better served to bring us up to speed rather than pulling us back. First episode just a little too shallow, and this one's better. And we find out there's a million Skrulls on Earth, which is kind of cool because then now it's like,
that's a lot.
That's a lot, and they can cause chaos. And why they don't want the Avengers there is because they don't want the Skrulls to impersonate an Avenger, and that causes more disarray. And who do you trust? Kind of that's what we got in the comic was. Who of the heroes can you trust?
Now, this is interesting because the Skrulls, and I'd have to pull out my big book and look it up, don't actually have mimicry superpowers. They simply mimic the appearance of who they're imitating. The only really powered Super Skrull, and it's through genetic manipulation or whatever it is the Super Skrull, who, in addition to being able to shapeshift as a Skrull does, has the powers of the Fantastic Four.
Correct.
But what's kind of interesting about that is that he has the powers of the Fantastic Four at a greatly...
One at a time.
No.
Right?
No, not one at a time.
He can use all 4 at the same time?
He certainly can, but it's at a greatly reduced rate because the Fantastic Four's powers grew over time, and Super Skrull has their powers when they were new to the hero game. So he's not as powerful as the Fantastic Four as a game.
So I can address your point to this because we find out Talos' daughter is getting a little confused why there's the scientist there. And as you see, she looks at her research, and her research is essentially they're going to do. They're genetically altering Skrulls. So they showed a Groot. They showed Extremis. Right. They showed what else? A couple other.
Yeah, there were. Races. You know what? I haven't
Yeah.
watched. I'd like to follow Eric Voss over on the new Rockstars YouTube channel. I'm sure he did an Easter egg video. I haven't watched it, but I probably will go do that because it's. But yeah, I caught Groot. I caught the Extremis one, and there was one other hero one that was related. So yeah, there's something pop but on their old DOS based computers because they're at Chernobyl or wherever they're hiding out.
Yeah. So that is their tactic essentially. Well, how do we make this even worse? Well, if then they could then copy superheroes' abilities, very easy to once again infiltrate. So, so we do see strained relationships. Great scene with Nick Fury and Rhodey. Essentially a confrontation. Great acting.
Yeah.
So I know people are saying, "Oh, it's boring." Like, there are good elements in that are great, that are stronger than the action on the screen. It is character interaction. We've got some really great actors on this. So I think it's definitely worth it for that, even though the action, I would say at this point, is subpar. Although, when they invaded, what's her name?
Olivia
Colman.
Yeah.
When she came in and they were trying, I mean, there's some good action scenes there, and Olivia Colman's great. We don't know where. I mean, she's essentially more extreme than S.H.I.E.L.D. is. Right. So I like these elements. Yeah. The only thing I'm a little confused, and I need someone to validate, maybe you can, Charlie, the fact that when Nick Fury does come home and you see his wife, obviously makes sense. He, with 30 years, he would have met someone, fallen in love. Why did she change back to human? I didn't get that because it seems like it would have been the opposite. Like, she would have been there because she doesn't want anybody to see her. Right. Her husband comes, she shows her true self. So is it
may simply because that was the button at the end of that episode. You may simply find out in episode 3. It may be addressed right away, or maybe it'll stay a mystery and it's some enduring because we're getting 6 episodes of this. So the next one is 3. So we're halfway through. I would imagine if there are great mysteries to be unraveled, that could clearly be a part of it. I had no idea this was a part of it that was coming. I think a lot of the plot details for this have been kept under wraps, which I appreciate.
Well, we know nothing about Nick Fury's personal life, and it's been that way. We found out he had a son that he lost, so maybe they had a son together, and he was a Skrull, and it was kind of like Gravik became like a son to him. Lots there on the thing, but I am curious to see why when she changed back. It would have been more interesting if she changed after she came home and showed herself oh, okay. Right. This seems like, is there some even subterfuge within their relationship? I don't know.
Don't know. That's all part of
that's why you watch more.
The cool super spy-y stuff, and we'll continue talking.
I figured it out, Charlie. They want you to keep watching to learn more.
That's why they don't Netflix it and everybody watches it in a weekend and then it's never heard from again.
And then you never talk about it again. It's I wonder why that show wasn't popular because nobody talked about it for after a week.
Right. Yeah. So nobody ever came back again. So, all right. So, and then secondly, and then we're going to jump in and talk about a film that came out this week that we both saw. But April and I started a tradition a couple of years ago, July 4th weekend, which we're kind of in July 4th week, for lack of better expression, we're recording this on Sunday. It's July 2. But we have always done a little gauntlet of films that either center around a setting of the July 4th time period or just in general kind of patriotic America. And it was funny. I was looking at a list of top 30 best and I added a few to it. But traditionally, we've always done Independence Day from 1996, a film Todd's not fond of, but that I absolutely love. There's an episode of the original Star Trek called the Omega Glory that has to do with, the Enterprise crew stumbling upon a planet that has some ties to kind of patriotic America in their distant past, which I think was very interesting. We watch the 1997 classic, I Know What You Did Last Summer with Jennifer Love Hewitt, because it has and your girl Buffy is in it as well, has a 4th of July setting. We watched The Flight of the Navigator, old Disney movie, again a July 4th setting. But looking into the patriotic aspect of it, we're moving on to include Forrest Gump, which is a film I love, very patriotic. Saving Private Ryan. Yeah.
That movie feels anti-patriotic because of all the bad things that happen because of politics and
but it's very American.
It's Americana.
It's Americana.
It's not patriotic.
There you go. So I suppose
July, you doing that one? Gonna do the Patriot?
Oh, the Born on the 4th of July is one that April won't watch, and I understand.
Really?
Yeah, she just finds it very disturbing, and I totally understand that. I haven't watched it in years, but yeah, I understand.
I love that movie. When I saw it, I was like, this is a fantastic film.
I totally agree.
Tom Cruise, great acting performance we got.
Yes, yeah, and deepening my very complicated relationship with Tom Cruise, were two other films we watched. Top Gun, which watching it through a modern lens is a shitty movie, but I watched Top Gun Maverick again for the first time since last summer. I love that movie. Oh my, it's actually really, really good. I couldn't believe how much I'd liked it watching it again. I was kind of glued to the screen.
I liked it, but I think I would find more flaws more I watched, like the fact that they just duplicated so much from the first movie. I'm like, I don't need to hear Great Balls of Fire again.
Yeah.
I don't need this. It just seems like I take those things out or doing new pitch. I would have liked that better, I think. But yeah, totally get it.
I agree, and don't forget, as that movie rolled, the entire kind of cold open of the film is just footage of planes going around on the deck of an aircraft carrier, which is until the third act of this film, there are no planes on an aircraft carrier. That's just the end of it. And of course, as it was pointed out in either pitch meeting or something else, their entire trench run is kind of stolen from the first Star Wars movie.
Exactly.
But actually, no, it's a film that I and again, deepening my complicated relationship with how much I I respect Tom Cruise as an artist, but as an individual in the real world, he's
a weirdo.
He really turns me off. I was surprised how much I really enjoyed this film. So Top Gun Maverick is in the gauntlet as well. So that's something fun that we do, just as we're bumming around, having that kind of going, kind of. But yeah, you're right. Americana is a better way to describe it over patriotism. So I like that. So it's our 4th of July.
Because then you can see The Patriot with Mel Gibson in colonial times or revolutionary times.
Exactly, a real feel good picture. Kaboom, kaboom.
Or somebody's where a cannonball takes out a guy's leg. I remember that scene. I'm like,
ooh, that sounds very. If I've seen that movie, I don't remember much about it, but
brutal. War was pretty brutal back then because you didn't die well.
Well, there was another one of the ones on the list was Glory, which I know. I know the guy cannonball blows off a guy's head in that, and Robert Shaw, who was Matthew Broderick's character in the film, has a residence hall on the campus of Michigan State named after him. There you go.
I did not know that.
Shaw Hall. You got it. All right. Okay. Let's talk about, and again, we're going to give tiny impressions upon this because our big blowout about this film is going to be in 2 weeks, I think.
Correct. Yeah. So we'll be having a special guest to talk about Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, in a spoiler cast as we normally would do, but we're just going to give impressions this week.
So we're going to keep spoiler free.
If you want everything big about this movie, but just ultimately this is really just quick impressions. That's it. We're not going to give like scores. We're not going to give any feedback on specific parts of the movie because it's fairly new. And go check it out, see it.
Yeah.
And check it out for yourself. But that's really where we're at. So this movie, I went and saw it with a friend of mine who I did not know this, but Indiana Jones is his favorite movie series. And Harrison Ford is his favorite actor. So based on that, I'm like, okay. And he's like, I should have worn like my fedora and shit. I'm like, oh, you should have. Why not?
I would have done. I was coming home from a couple of days on the road. Most of my cosplay stuff is in the garage, so I did not take the time to dig it out. But I might. It was also really hot. Did not want to put on all that stuff. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, and he was psyched for it. He was realistic about some of the better aspects and worse aspects of Crystal Skull. He actually did not want me to mention the name Mutt at all. So he's realistic. He's not like, delusionary like the people who like say, everything is great.
Yeah,
no, it's a great film.
Very rose-colored glass, like a lot of people are about a lot of franchises. They get kind of franchise glasses. It's fair.
Exactly.
It's fair.
Yeah. So I will say, not giving anything away. I enjoyed this film. I recognize its flaws, and I think your mileage may vary. I think you ultimately have to be an Indiana Jones fan to really get into this movie series. As a casual viewer, I think this movie is very shallow on so many aspects.
That's a very good point. If I could jump in, and it was clearly evidenced not only in the theater we saw it in, but in the row that we saw it in two different instances. As we're sitting there, April was to my left, and immediately to her left was a young couple, a man and woman. Further down that same row, and we were in the third or fourth row going back. All the seats are recliners, so it's give a little bit more distance. But there was a woman. I think just a woman of probably younger than us with 7 or 8 young children. 7 or 8 young children. So to your point, in the movie theater, even though I went to the bathroom beforehand, I had to get up in the middle. So I get up and I'm walking to pee. And as I'm coming back, the young man and woman sitting to April's left, the guy is right next to April, sitting incredibly engaged. The girl could not be more bored, is literally doing this. If you can see me on YouTube. I was like, that poor young. She looked like she would rather be watching paint dry. Really,
It was like
couldn't
a
stand it.
trade-off, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is one for you, one for me.
Exactly. And then as far as the kids go, I was like, oh, great. There's a bunch of kids in our row. They're going to be bouncing off the walls and being obnoxious. They weren't really that young, but April turns to me and saying, who would bring young kids to a movie like this? The last Indiana Jones movie was 15 years ago. None of these kids were born. And the classic era of Indiana Jones was 40 years ago. It's just not really it's in the same way that Star Trek is in a lot of ways, though, the Star Trek is a franchise, not that they're really doing great right now doing it, doesn't necessarily reach across the aisle to kids. Indiana Jones is really for people like us. It's for your late 40, early, it's for your 40 somethings, maybe late 30 somethings. People who watch it with their older sibling, blah, blah, blah. But as far as seeing it in the theater, I mean, the heyday of Indiana Jones, and please at me on Twitter at the C3 or at Secret Friends U, if you are someone who absolutely loved Crystal Skull, and you know what, somebody out there listening, that could be their favorite Indiana Jones movie. I don't cast any aspersions on that. Love what you love. But the true heyday of Indiana Jones is in the 80s. It's people who are our age, Todd, people who are plus or minus probably 5 to 10 years of you and I, but not teenagers now, and not young, not 20 somethings now. It wasn't a reach across the aisle kind of film for that poor young lady who I would estimate was probably in her late 20s, if at all. But just it is very endemic. Yeah, it is very much a movie for the fan base. Probably very much the same way that in some ways some of the later Star Wars films are very much a movie for the fan base. So yeah.
And Indiana Jones hasn't been in the zeitgeist. It's not like there's other things going out that carries it forward, like Star Wars. You had series and animated. Like Indiana Jones is like, it happens every 15 years, and it's building upon itself rather than like, oh, we're starting over again, and here's new characters, and we're doing that, reintroducing like James Bond, or even Star Wars, where here's now the sequel series. Here's new characters, new excitement, builds on the past, but it's still like you can glom onto these characters. They haven't treated Indiana Jones, I would say, exceedingly well, because essentially people have said, I've got other priorities. They didn't make this their priority. So that's a shame. And we did have James Mangold, which now, based on the performance of this film, I know a lot of people saying, oh, are they going to give him like, this has so little to do with James Mangold. It has more to do with the franchise, all the factors of having an 80-year-old man, like a 15-year gap between movies. All of these things essentially rarely work out. And why were people thinking, especially after the last film was not very good? So it's like, you're taking all these things back to say, well, Top Gun did great. I'm like, well, Top Gun is a lightning in a bottle. It is not the rule.
And it wasn't a foot and mouth or boots on the ground action film. It was about an action film that took place in aircraft, in flying, in jets and stuff. It wasn't
a simple story. You could easily believe too.
I mean, precisely, as we were just talking about Top Gun Maverick. But yes, you did get, and I always like to make fun of anytime Tom Cruise, anything the Tom Cruise run. I did like to make fun of that, without a doubt. But that was featured in Maverick. But Indiana Jones, the entire role is very physical. He's running around. The entire first sequence, as many people know, was a CGI de-aging. The first 20 minutes of it was told in 1944 at the end of World War II. Again, this is from the trailers, not spoiling anything. And then the rest of the film is told in the summer of 1960. The summer of 69.
So, and he was born in 1999 or
1899.
1899. Yep. So even then, where we always said, he's always the same age. Unfortunately, though, Harrison Ford is now 10 years older. So this really should have taken place. This should have been the last movie. Yeah. So at least it would have been mirroring that. But he's even 10 years older than the character on screen, which is just so weird.
I guess they were trying to find a way to tie it back to World War II and Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, as we know is the daughter of Toby Jones's character, which we see in the run-up sequence in World War II. So that makes a little bit more sense, I suppose, but still. Anyway, we will talk about this definitely a little bit more in depth.
More to come
in a couple of weeks, but yeah, definitely feel free to add us at Twitter and other socials with your impressions of the film. We'd love to hear about it, and hit those up, and we will, once we get to our big spoiler cast, we'll definitely talk about your comments. If you
but I do recommend it if you're a fan of the series or if you've introduced your children and they enjoy it too.
Yeah.
By all means, enjoy.
Yeah, exactly correct. All right, so let's wrap it up with a little discussion about the third episode of Strange New Worlds, season 2. So
yes. So Strange New Worlds this season feels like they're hitting on a lot of like classic tropes. Like, oh, we're masquerading as like spies. We're doing this part. The last one was a court case. This one, they hit on time travel and basically kind of mirroring City on the Edge of Tomorrow. That's the name of the episode,
City
right,
on
Charlie?
the Edge Forever. City on the Edge Forever.
Yeah, Forever. Okay. So that was a classic episode about forlorn love and world ending and changing history. Really funny. You know it because you've seen Spock and Kirk in like the gangster suits. So it's a great look. And Harlan Ellison wrote that one. It's one of the best, heritage episodes. It's
as I mentioned to you, because we were talking about Jim Kirk's brother and how he died. I watched that TOS episode called the Operation Annihilate, was the episode that followed City on the Edge Forever, which I also watched this week because in the Ready Room, which is the follow-on show that Will Wheaton hosts, don't get me started, he talked a little bit about that episode, and so it made me want to go back and watch again. It's still Joan Collins, and it's 1930s New York. It's an incredible setting.
Yeah. So essentially, this is doing the same thing, but the premise is very smaller because you really only have one member of the cast who goes back in the past. She gets basically interrupted by a guy who gives her a device and say, "You got to go to the bridge," and that's all. And she goes to the bridge, and she is on the bridge of a different Enterprise. So it's essentially, woo, it happens. Yeah. And then this is essentially a team-up episode with her, with Captain Kirk, who is now the captain of the Enterprise, a different timeline.
Alt version of himself, but it's still Paul Wesley, who we got as Kirk in another alt version of himself at the end in the Quality of Mercy, which was the season 1 finale, which retold. Which walked through the sequence of events from A Balance of Terror, which was a TOS episode where we were introduced to the Romulans, and it was Pike trying to stop his own annihilation, his own fate at the end of season 1, and figuring out that he couldn't do it without sacrificing Spock. So, loved it. I enjoyed this very much. Yet, is it tropey? Without a doubt. I think they're hitting tropes that kind of work with their own spin.
Well, you can if you do it well, right?
Yeah,
and everything's forgiven if you do it well.
That's very true.
I always I hate modern times. It's always we're going back and we're going to hit a specific time that is very specific to you because it's cheaper. We don't have to worry about costumes. We can do this.
And they filmed this in and around downtown Toronto, which is where the show films. This was our first take on Canada in all of Star Trek.
Which it's just funny that she knows so much about Canada. I'm like, seriously?
Well, it's like,
how do you know so much about this time frame?
In the DS9 episode, which we talked about several times over on Code 47, the two-parter where they go back to 2024, but it came out in 1995, and they're like the Sanctuary District. There's these walled off sections where they put homeless people. All of a sudden, Cisco was a 21st century historian, where that had never necessarily came. He loved baseball and stuff, but he wasn't like a history expert. But then, for the purpose of this episode, he totally was. So yeah, same kind of thing.
Totally happens. Yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit, but it wasn't because of the plot. It was because of the connection between Lon and Kirk.
Yeah,
I thought their chemistry was great. I really enjoyed that, and that was and I really think Carol Kane has been a phenomenal add to this cast. Right. She's fun. She's goofy. She has not aged a day since Taxi. She's great in Kimmy Schmidt. I mean, such a great actress. So awesome. And that made this better because I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, we're going to like, I was just like, I hate when they do this. I hated it in Picard when they did it. I hated that time frame.
In Picard, they did it over a season, and they did not. And again, like you said, troporific, forgiven if it's done well. And Picard in season 2 is a train wreck. The entire thing. I will tease that we've not seen the last of Paul Wesley as Kirk. He does have another appearance later in the season, but I will not tell you any more about it. But he is coming back. And and you will enjoy that. I believe you'll enjoy that one as well.
Yeah, and I just love this. Once again, this series is a great Just great way to jump into Star Trek. It's not overbearing you with like, oh, a bigger plot is happening. It's just letting you enjoy characters in great
episode,
and it's introducing
yeah.
and it's doing a lot to introduce so much every episode. It's like it's building this universe, and I love that more than just like one big storyline, because I feel like you've got a lot of subpar things because of the pacing, because you got to get to the end. This is a much better way to do it, I think, for Star Trek.
I agree, and I would say, and Todd, you and I both said, and we've recommended this to other kind of non-Star Trek people. You could jump onto this show and just really, I think, enjoy it as a standalone, and then it opens the doorway to other Star Trek related things, should that be your fancy. But you could also just watch and enjoy this show. That's the beauty of it. So yeah, I would say Paramount Plus is the home of almost all of Star Trek, but it is the home of this show. So go watch it. Drops every Thursday. We are on this was episode 3 of 10. We still have the Lower Decks cross up coming up. That's probably going to be episode number 7, so we'll see it a little later in the summer. But yeah, top marks. Totally agree with you. This is really rapidly moved up the ranks of probably my 3rd or 4th favorite Star Trek series. These guys are really great.
Absolutely. Well, very good. Well, now, Charlie, it's time for us to make our way to a very cheap flight to go to the land down under, as you would say. Eric Quantas, take us away so we can talk to the mutants about a year called 2003.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. The mutants have been gathered for a topic or a game to be entertained. And this week, we're doing a fun little look back. I've always wanted to do this, but I figured it's the best time to do it because we've seen some movies. We've got a gap of content. So we're looking back at a year that ends in the number 3. So I picked 2003. This was kind of a fun year. In the future, we could do, 83, 93.
Oh, I love it.
Every year, all those years could be fun.
They call it over on the weekly broadcasting, they call it the time crapsual. Like it's the crappy pop culture references. But
yes, and we've done that with when we do anniversary episodes of Secret Friends where we look back. So this is like us doing the same thing. So it's kind of fun doing these like little episodes. So I'll give you a little bit about 2003. First of all, in 2003, I was just coming back from Saudi Arabia in the Air Force. It was a different time, married for about 2 years, and I would be getting out of the Air Force this December, if you look at it that way. So that's where I was in my life. So I had just returned back from Saudi Arabia and happy to be home with my wife after being gone as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom for 6 months. So that's where I was in my life.
Did you personally bring freedom to the Iraqis? Don't be modest.
Well, George Bush said mission accomplished. So
okay, good.
I guess.
Okay, thanks for that. There was a great Chappelle sequence during his show was on during this time where he had Black Bush. Just Google it. I don't even want to quote anything from it. It's way too offensive. But it was it was very humorous.
Yes. Yeah. So it was a different time, different life. This is and we're going to kind of give you some context to what 2003 was like for younger folks or people that just want to look back. George W. Bush was president. We created the Department of Homeland Security basically because of all the 9/11 things. So that was something that came out of that, a new Department of basically Homeland Defense. Then we had Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California, replaced Governor Gray Davis.
What did he even do? Gray Davis.
I don't know. Like, apparently people weren't happy with his leadership. Arnold was a Republican. If so, a Republican in California, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. The governor.
Apple's iTunes launch. So, folks, this is when like iPod existed, but no iPhone.
And
this is a big deal.
iPods were like basically the size of a deck of cards, pretty much. And then they were like
the size of it. Yeah, they were had like 30 gigabytes or something like that.
They went down to basically the size of a. I don't even know how you like
a nano, a micro,
smaller than a matchbook. Yeah, I mean they got rid. And now they don't exist. You just listen to everything on your phone.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you could still buy an iPod. I think they might have finally discontinued. But for a while there, you could still buy them.
I think they're gone. I probably have one in a drawer somewhere. Gave one to
sure. Everybody does.
Yeah, exactly. So
why not? Then the space shuttle Columbia exploded over Texas. I remember this because I was in a chow hall in Saudi Arabia when this happened. I'm like, oh my goodness! I remember when the last space shuttle exploded when I was in elementary school.
Yeah, I was 10 years old when the I was going to say Discovery, the Challenger. in 1986, I was in gym class. They rolled a TV in or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. Then the invasion of Iraq, like I mentioned, I was in Saudi Arabia there when I was there, and Colin Powell was there on talking to the UN, basically saying we've got invaded. They've got weapons of mass destruction. Guess what, folks? They did not. So that's enough there.
Funny how
The last Volkswagen Beetle rolled off the production line in Mexico.
We were just talking about this last night because April was saying, hey, in a couple of years I might want, because I just got a new car this week. I'm very excited about that, Honda CRV. But we were talking about next car for April. She says, I'd be interested in maybe like a Mini Cooper or something like that. And I said, what about the Volkswagen Beetle? Do they still make those? And come to find out they've made them in 20 years. That's very surprising to me.
Well, no, so this is like the original bug, Charlie. This is like the one they got from Germany. So they had been making them just legacy vehicles.
I had no ideas.
So the rebooted Volkswagen Bug, they made that until like 2013.
Oh my gosh.
It was a fad that died out. Then we got 10 most popular websites were Yahoo, AOL, MSN, Microsoft, eBay. Google was a small little guy. Go.com, Netscape, Windows Media, and Weather.com.
Well, everybody still loves Weather.com, but it's an app. Netscape doesn't exist. AOL doesn't really exist. I don't know.
You could only check these things out on a PC.
Yeah.
There was no mobile surfing in 2003.
We didn't have even the beginning of smartphones. I was talking about this era recently, and it was 2005 that we got the Motorola Razr that's with a Z and an R. But prior to that, in 2000 or 2001, we had the StarTAC phone, and it was a flip phone, but again, green screen or black screen, green, black green screen, and
very limited,
and we still had those basically use it as a bludgeoning instrument, the Nokia phones that were completely indestructible, but
candy bars.
I had a flip phone at this time, and I was telling April about, because we had that hands-free law that went into effect in Michigan this week. I was talking about back in this time period, I had literally, it was a plug-in that went into what was formerly known as a cigarette lighter in a car, but it was a big speaker bud. And that was how I talked, because I was in my car. That's all I did, because I was a salesperson. That was my first experience with hands-free. This was before Bluetooth or
GPS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're still doing MapQuest and printing things out if you needed to get somewhere.
Yep. It was a different world. Yeah, the first iPhone didn't come out until 2007, so that gives you an instance of like actually a screen where you could touch and do things. Right. So this is crazy.
I was still using my Palm Pilot, Todd. That's how I kept myself organized.
Exactly. I had a Dell Axum or something like that, and it had a GPS unit you could do to. It's a crazy world. Yeah, tech was expensive and not cheap. Right. Gas was $1.59 a gallon. 2003 Ford Ranger cost $8,900.
Wow.
Bounty Pop paper towels were $8 for a 12-pack roll, and Tide liquid laundry detergent was $6 for a 100-ounce jug.
It's about 3 times the price now, as I recall.
Well, it's double at least for some things, but gas is 3x.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so crazy. And then we had from over on Patreon, Corey Durig, who is one of our steady eddies, had this to say about 2003. At the time, I was really excited for 3 movies: The Matrix Reloaded, X-Men 2, which X-Men United.
2.
Yeah, that was the best of those 3
good
films, without a doubt. And Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh God, I love Pirates of the Caribbean. Video games, Knights of the Old Republic or KOTOR. Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. I thought that was a movie. Was that also a video game?
It was a video game, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And is this supposed to be Wind Walker? Or
Wind Waker.
Wind Waker.
Zelda game.
Don't anything. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Yeah. Corey, I'm right with you, buddy. X2 was that was kind of the creme de la creme, and it was one of the very typical kind of Canadian films. It was one of the very first appearances by Aaron Douglas, who was the chief on Battlestar Galactica. He was one of the soldiers. They got blown up when Magneto pulled the pin out of everybody's grenades. He was one of the guys that got blown up. But we had Brian Cox as the villain, who was Stryker. Brian Cox,
and Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
That was excellent.
Who never came back again.
Helen Cumming. That was great. Yeah.
We had the apparent death of Jean Grey before she became Dark Phoenix. Just a great flick. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're now going to get into like what was happening in the world of media. So we'll cover this. We have the movies list, and essentially we're going to do the top 20 movies. So we'll go through this really quick so you kind of get a feel for it. We'll start from the bottom and go up. So at this point, Charlie, I'll do 20 through 11. You do 10 through 1.
Works for me.
So number 20, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Romantic comedies were still viable at the box office. That was Kate Hudson, Matthew McConaughey. Then we had Wrong Turn. This is became a series of horror films. Had Alicia Dushku, Jeremy Sisto, and Emmanuel Chikri. Yeah, I remember that one wasn't too bad. Big Fish, Tim Burton, telling more personal story about a father and son relationship. Yeah. Old School. Wow. The beginning really of Will Ferrell's life outside of SNL.
The Dynasty. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with the Owen brother, or one of the Owen brothers. Yeah.
Yeah. Big time for R-rated comedies. It was just like it was that lens. And then, obviously we got the movies after that with the 40-Year-Old Virgin and those things like that. So when we had Holes, this is Shia LaBeouf's first movie. Sigourney Weaver was in it. Basically, it's a kid's book that's very popular, and they were in this, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. So pretty good cast with that. Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines.
Not a bad one. Probably the last of the watchables until, in my opinion, the most recent one, which I thought was okay.
Yeah, James Cameron did not direct that, but that was considered a canon.
Yeah.
Is it considered canon? I don't know. I'm not going to even talk about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Just keep it moving.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have 13, a movie apparently that if you want to get scared about raising teenagers, watch this movie because your kids are doing bad stuff.
Of course.
Then we got, I've not seen this movie, The Last Samurai, Tom Cruise.
Oh, never saw it.
Yeah, an American essentially shows up in Japan, and the White Hope has to save him. Maybe he's not American. I don't know. No, he's American military advisor.
Yeah,
embraces the samurai culture.
Yeah, I thought it was after the Civil War, wasn't it? I don't know.
Probably. Yeah, sure. Or not. Yeah. So I've not seen that. And then Charlie, we get the second Fast and Furious film, Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh my goodness! Coming to a bad trip to the movies with the Cardins in the near future. We'll be talking all about it.
Yes. I didn't see was Vin Diesel in that one? I don't see his face on it. I don't think Vin Diesel was in that movie.
He wasn't in Tokyo Drift. I thought that was the third.
Well, they don't show his name. They don't even show his face on the poster.
We will decode this mystery over on the bad trip. So
and I will not be paying attention because I've listened enough about Fast and Furious movies that I hope they go away. But if you like those movies, enjoy. Then number 11, School of Rock. Jack Black once again.
Just saw it seriously a few weeks ago. I'd never seen it before.
I've not seen it either, but I've heard it's very good.
All right. Well, picking up number 10 is Memories of a Murder. Looks like it is in a small Korean province. Two detectives. Never heard of it. Don't know anything about it.
Small foreign film.
Yeah. But number 9 is Lost in Translation. This was one of Scarlett Johansson's first big films, directed by Sofia Coppola. I remember seeing it. Bill Murray is the other star. Great flick. Number 8, Todd, you just finally watched this one over the holidays. Love Actually. This is a film that somehow I still love, even though it was my first date with my ex-wife. April and I do. That is part of our regular holiday watching. Just a fun little ensemble piece of a film. Number 7, featured in Todd's background, if you're watching us on YouTube, Kill Bill, Volume 1 of 2 volumes. Quentin Tarantino and Uma Thurman as an assassin known as, is it the bride or the wife? What is she?
It was the bride. The bride.
I haven't seen it in an awfully long time, but yeah, it's Uma.
Great film, great soundtrack.
Yeah, David Carradine, Daryl Hannah, Michael Madsen, great stuff. Number 6, of course, I saw it a million times because I had kids at this age. My son was 3. Finding Nemo, which was Ellen DeGeneres, Albert Brooks, and Willem Dafoe. Really? Was he the dentist? That would make sense. Oh my God! And
he was the shark, wasn't he? One of the sharks. I don't know.
That's bad guys, really. Number 5 with a bullet. This was pre MCU, and even really just post Sony Tobey Maguire. This was Hulk, directed by Ang Lee, who is definitely an acquired taste. He is a Chinese director. Chinese?
No, he's American. He's American. Yeah, and he's won Oscars. He's great. He's a great director. He's definitely does things all across the board.
And this film was definitely something unto itself. Eric Bana was, of course, Bruce Banner the Hulk, with the superb Jennifer Connelly, Sam Elliott, and Josh Lucas rounding out the cast.
Yeah.
Number 4 is The Dreamers.
An indie film.
Yeah, an indie film. Yeah, Young American, blah, blah, blah. Michael Pitt, blah, 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 a bunch of people I don't know.
David Green, probably the biggest name. Yeah.
Yes. Number 3, and again, not a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings, Return of the King was the second film in the series?
Third. It was finalizing the trilogy.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And this is the first of these movies I actually saw in a U.S. theater, because the first two, I was in countries serving my country.
In countries serving your country. Indie film number 2, an indie film at number 2 is called Old Boy. It looks like this is
that movie is brutal. Has one of the most brutal, some of the most brutal scenes I've ever seen about a guy basically trying to get vengeance, and he has a scene where he basically beats up a lot of people with a hammer.
Sounds delightful. And finishing at number 1 is Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl, the first in a series of films that definitely has diminishing returns, because this was the best film without a doubt. Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley taking a classic Disney parks ride and making it into quite a spectacle of a movie.
Yes.
Directed by Gore Verbinski. Great flick.
Yeah, and these were not in the order of financial box office. These were basically popularity, so like ratings for like that people enjoyed. So of these movies, Charlie, which one do you think grossed the most money?
Oh God,
can't look at the list.
Probably, either Lord of the Rings or the Black Pearl. So I'll go with Black Pearl.
You're wrong. Finding Nemo, number 1. Lord of the Rings, so Nemo 380, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King 377, and Pirates of the Caribbean 305. So big gap. Okay. But as you see that how much money movies used to make, even in 2003, was not every movie made $1 billion. They were starting to get big, and their budgets exploded. Yeah.
All right, you want to do the same thing with the TV?
TV.
I'll go 20 through 11, and you can take the top 10. So.
All right.
And a lot of these will be quick, because I've certainly never heard a lot of them. At number 20, we have a show called Blue Murder, crime drama mystery. Number 19, Rosemary and Thyme, but spelled like the spice and the rosemary.
Oh, these are like British, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, crime drama. Full Metal Alchemist. That rings a bell.
Anime.
It's an anime. Yeah. Dead Like Me. That was over on HBO, I think, wasn't it?
Ooh, my wife loves that. It's about basically people dead and essentially acting as Grim Reapers. Manny Patinkin's in it. Really well loved.
Gotcha. Air Crash Investigation is number 16.
What the hell is that?
It's a documentary. It's a documentary series. Number 15 is another HBO show, Carnivale, which I've heard great things about. Yeah,
only 2 seasons.
Yeah, Todd, this is a favorite of yours. At number 14, The Venture Brothers is from Adult Swim, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, great. Basically, Johnny Quest type of show. Yeah, it's just very funny and goofy. Yep.
The enduring, though no longer on the air, Mythbusters, who was on the air for 20 years, is a doco series where people are busting myths. Teen Titans, over an animated program which is still ongoing now called Teen Titans Go, I assume. About the same. This is a very stylized version of the DC Comics teen team of heroes. Nip Tuck. I watched a few episodes of this show, but it's about
it was on FX. I think it was one of the first big FX shows.
Two plastic surgeons in the 1980s with Dylan Walsh and Julian McMahon. We got two. We got General Lane and Dr. Doom. Show called Peep Show. Now I'm familiar with it. That is a comedy. Definitely sounds like it could be British to me. But Todd, number 9 is a personal favorite of ours, Reno 911 from Comedy Central with Tom Lennon and Robert Ben Garrett and Kerry Kennedy, all from The State, from the MTV show from the 80s or the 90s.
Yes. And then Charlie, you're breaking laws.
Oh, my bad. Go on. I was on a roll.
Okay.
I was on a roll.
Yeah.
Take it
so
over.
Reno 911, great show. Comedy Central was on fire because people watched a lot of Comedy Central because there was no streaming services, so that's where you went for your funny. They actually have had new episodes on I think the Roku channel now owns new episodes.
Oh,
and
not even Paramount Plus. Oh, interesting. Okay, all right.
Maybe on Paramount Plus. Another show I haven't heard of called New Tricks. I'm guessing a lot of these are British. Then we had a show called Las Vegas, which didn't last very long, but it was definitely that CBS formulaic Jimmy Caan,
and Josh Duhamel. Yeah. Oh, here's one that I was talking about. California.
Yes, the OC. This was probably better known. It was essentially launching a lot of new actors in their careers, but also the writer of the OC ended up going and writing some Marvel comics along the way because there was a geeky element with that show as well.
Big time.
Yep. Cold Case. This would be another one of those CBS procedurals where CBS owned
it
the
literally
market.
said, like you said, CBS procedurals, which sounds great. Those really long receipts.
Yep, absolutely. Then we have Arrested Development. This is a series obviously started on Fox. I think got 2 or 3 seasons on Fox.
Yeah.
Went to Netflix, cult classic. And I was surprised that show lasted as long as it did because the ratings were horrible. But once again, became a cult classic later in life on Netflix. One Tree Hill, a CW, maybe was it the CW or was it WB, UPN? At the time, it was one of those networks.
Yeah.
One Tree Hill was a big.
They all became each other. It was not UPN though. It was I think it was WB.
Something like that. And then 2.5 Men. This is when CBS was on fire with all the comedies. Oh my goodness. I think this is pre-Tiger Blood. That show was on fire. Lots of sexism, a lot of denigrating. And who knows? At this time, was it Ashton Kutcher? Was it... this is still what's his name at the time? It was still Charlie Sheen, right?
Yeah, it was Sheen and John Cryer and Angus T. Jones, who was the kid. That kid grew up cranky.
Yeah.
I know that he got himself in a lot of trouble. But Todd, number one. This is
number one. NCIS. I've only watched one episode of NCIS. It was one of the worst things I ever watched. It's horrible. I watched it at my aunt's house.
And
it was
Todd,
bad.
It's spun off of what show that I love so much?
Jag, a man who can only solve crimes because he's a lawyer in a jet. Yes,
absolutely. This is a show. David McCullum, Sean Murray, and of course Mark Harmon. My mom's favorite show, hands down. Still watches it to this day. It is. It's catnip for old people. It's NCIS.
It definitely is. Yes, and they have 85 spinoff. Very good. That was the year of TV. I'm sure there was better classics there, but we had some British invasions happening for some reason. But we get into comics. So I looked back, Charlie, at the Eisner Award winners. So kind of give a context of like the best of the time. So very quickly, best writer was Brian Michael Bendis for his kind of overall, because he was writing Powers, Alias, Daredevil, Spider-Man.
Wow.
I mean, he was on fire. The dude made everything he touched turn to gold, and he was amazing through Image and Marvel. So he was not only doing, he was doing independent books at Image. Then penciler, we had Kevin O'Neill in 2003. He illustrated the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was a blinking on his name, crazy old man Miller, Alan Moore. It was his book. So great comic, not a great movie, but it was really cool. It was just like an assembly of these literary classic characters having adventures.
That was the movie that Sean Connery decided to retire after its failure.
Yes. God, that was at a time when we got a lot of just really crappy adaptations because they're like, there's money in them hills.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Only if you do it well. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Best serialized story, 2003 Fables was the first collection called Legend of Exile by Bill Willingham. Great series. I met the guy at FablesCon it was in was it Duluth? Where did I meet him? They had this little con about the Fables community, the people that loved these comics. So very cool.
That's great.
Great series. Yeah, I loved it. Original series it was a Vertigo title. Best continuing series, once again, 2003 Daredevil by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Miller. This is a title we may have to do in Spinner Rack because I've heard so many awesome things about it. It's definitely it was kind of like that era when Quesada and everybody was like relaunching Marvel. This is one of those titles that really stood out. Best finite series, limited series, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 2 by Alan Moore. So once again, better comic. Best new series was Fables as well. So some really good stuff was coming out at the time. The reason I'll point out this title is best title for young readers in 2003 was Hero, Bear, and the Kid, because this is the comic that I bought for my wife that actually got her into comics and then expanded horizons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just a fun little series about a kid who Bear, he imagined would become a superhero. Just very cute. The illustration was awesome. And that is it for the world of comics at that time. Ooh. So not a bad year for some good stuff.
No, not at all. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, let's do another top 20 here. We've got the Billboard Hot 100 for 2003. You want to grab it again? I'll do 20 through 11. Wait. We'll switch it. You do 20 through 11.
I'll do 20 through 11. Yes. Okay. So it'll be interesting to see if I know some of these songs. I think I do. So number 20. Yeah. So number 20. Magic Stick, Little Kim featuring 50 Cent. Wow. I know that song. Not a classic. Drift Away. Uncle Cracker featuring Dobie Grace, essentially a cover and updated. I think I don't know if he changed anything, but it definitely was a cover.
Yeah.
I'm With You, Avril Lavigne, very good ballad. Very, very good ballad. I Know What You Want, Busta Rhymes, Mariah Carey featuring Flip Mode Squad. Not a bad song.
Right.
Beautiful, Christina Aguilera. That's a classic.
Big
she
time.
sings the crap out of that
Big
song.
Time. Oh, yeah.
All I have, Jennifer Lopez featuring LL Cool J. I think this is before Batfleck or what Bennifer, whatever.
Maybe.
Yeah. 21 Questions, 50 Cent featuring Nate Dogg. Don't really know that one.
Mm-mm.
Shake Your Tail Feather, Nelly,
Fella?
P. Diddy, and Murphy Lee. I do know this song, not a classic.
Nope.
Baby Boy, Beyonce featuring Sean Paul. Get Low, I know this one. Lil Jon and the East Side Boys featuring Ying Yang Twins. Get Low.
Low. Oh,
Yes.
no, okay. Different, yeah, right.
Yeah, so if you see a trend here, it's almost all hip hop.
Yeah,
There's only
big time.
only two what I would call pop rock style songs, but mainly pop. Yeah. So then go and bring us home, Charlie.
Absolutely. So bring me to life. Oh God, Evanescence. Oh my God.
The best Daredevil.
That is 100% early aughts to the nth degree. So
loved it. My son used to listen to that song, the video, watch it, and he played it to death.
Yeah, absolutely of his time. Picture with Kid Rock and Sheryl Crow back when we could stand him. He is, of course, the shame of Macomb County, where I lived for many years. Gotcha. Miss You by Aaliyah. Not ringing a bell. But
God, rest in peace. She passed away.
Yeah, number 7, right there by Chingy. Most Def.
I love it when you bring it right there. Right? Another one.
Unwell by Matchbox 20. This was
good song.
This was pre the Rob Thomas solo dynasty. When I'm Gone by Three Doors Down. Who Gave Us I Can't Stand to Fly? The Superman song, I think. Maybe right before this. Crazy in Love with Beyonce and Jay-Z. That was the beginning of their romance. Was that?
Oh yeah, that was the initial phase. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Get Busy by Sean Paul. I can never keep him straight. I can't. Yeah, but it was that guy, right?
And Temperature was that. Yeah, Temperature in the early morning.
That's the dude. And then number 2 is the song that lives in infamy because of the guy who did it. Was Ignition or the Ignition remix by the now incarcerated Robert Kelly of Chicago. That is right, R. Kelly.
Check out the South Park episode in the closet. So good.
My God. And number 1 with a bullet, literally, In the Club by 50 Cent. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 50 Cent, man. Talk about, at the time, I swear, Dr. Dre was so good at finding artists and developing like Eminem and Snoop Dogg and wow, what a creation, with all those the songs. And 50 Cent is in the Expendables.
Yes.
6, 4, whatever it is.
I think it is either 4 or 6 because we saw a trailer.
Exportables? Is that what it is? Exportables?
No, Harrison Ford is not in this one, though he was in one of the previous ones. But
yeah, put a 4 in there somewhere.
Todd, take us home because tech is your baby, so go for it.
Yeah, so we kind of touched on this, but tech, I mean, it was still early on, so I don't really have to go in deep into this, but iTunes Music Store was a big deal, getting music legally online versus Napster. That was a big deal.
The one I was using, and you and I are both sharing at this time,
LimeWire,
not legally, was BearShare.
Oh, there was a number that you could find.
That was a big one for me. Making those mixed discs and good stuff.
Geez, yeah, LimeWire, yeah, it's a great time. Camera phones, so yeah, your flip phone with camera were 2 pixels. What was that thing? I don't know. I got a picture of it though.
Here's a picture of your naked girlfriend. Click.
And what could you even do with it? I mean, you could text someone a picture, but on your screen that was so resolution. I mean, nobody took a picture on a.
Not a great era for sharing dirty pictors.
Here's my photo album with my cell phone pics and
exactly.
like
there you go.
Game Boy Color camera. Yeah, hybrid cars. This is from Prius. Yeah, Prius finally engaged and came out. So 20 years of hybrids. That's amazing. This is hilarious. CD-ROM shredder because everybody put all of their delicate information on CDs. Yes.
Wouldn't you just need a bigger shredder, like with bigger, like crunch?
You need something a little bit, because you will destroy it. That's not good. Like credit cards, shredding those. Yeah, so that was before we got USB sticks, essentially, and USB drives. So yeah, and then Cialis. This is essentially the successor to Viagra. So technology making dreams happen for men of a certain age.
No comment. Okay, well that's it for 2003. We got to jump on doing another one of these soon. Now, do we go forward or do we go backwards? I'm going to advocate going backwards. I'd like to see the 1993, Todd, the year you graduated from high school. Ready to take that on? I'm saying
Absolutely. We'll find
that's my
another
vote.
gap week where
Yeah.
there's not much happening, and we can get somebody to join us
Yeah.
that might not have lived through that time period, so they can be asked.
That'd be a great one for if we did 1993. It'd be a great one to have Kay on to talk about that, because she was born in the middle of the 80s, so she'd have probably no idea about a lot of that stuff. That would be cool. All right. Well, with that, friends, that is the end of our program. Thank you, as always, for joining us. And thank you to our awesome Patreon supporters. You can, of course, go over to patreon.com/secretfriendsunite and do a free trial of any one of our support levels and hear our great fun content. We would love to hear from you about that. Todd, where do people find you out there?
They follow me at TExtra on Twitter. As of right now, Twitter might not be a great space for long. We'll see.
We will see.
Hopefully, another service comes up that can do the same things that Twitter does, which is great. Connect people across the galaxy so we can expand our horizons. But that's where I'm at.
Right. We are also looking to bring back secretfriendsunite@gmail.com as our email address. That is another way that we're going to do a little bit better in responding to. Drop us an email. Let us know something you're interested about. Maybe something you'd like us to talk about on the show. We also have an awesome Discord community, very vibrant, that we'd like to see you over on. So find us over on Discord. I can, of course, be found over on Twitter for the time being at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. My lovely wife, April, and I do, of course, run the USS Grand Petoskey. That is one of the biggest chapters of Starfleet, the international Star Trek fan club in the world. I also run Region 13, which is Michigan and Eastern Canada. If you're a Trekker within the sound of my voice, want to meet other Trekkers in your neck of the woods, that's Trekkers, not Truckers, in your neck of the woods, I can help you. Hit us up on socials of that name and at a website, ussgrandpetoskey.com. With that, I'm going to tell you once again, thank you for joining us, that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Too fast, too furious.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.